Material for the brain. Conversations for thinking bodies. In this show, together with our guests, we explore different ways in which we can develop a meaningful relationship with our bodies and minds and respond to the current state of the culture in a quest for more integrated and embodied perspectives. Hello and welcome to Material for the Brain podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to dive into a very interesting topic. It's going to be a solo episode. And we're going to be talking about what is the purpose of dance, which is quite a huge meta question. And I had quite some fresh thoughts recently, and I thought it would be great to share it with you. But before we're going to go to that, I just want to announce that we are having our yearly information evening for the Movement Lab Study Groups program. And we have been doing quite some fundamental shifts within the Movement Lab. So I'm very excited to share all our upcoming plans for the next year and welcome you people who are curious about how to make dance a more meaningful part of your lives. So you can look for that in the podcast note and sign up for these free online events. And now let's dive into today's topic. So as you know, dance has been the major thing I've been doing in my life in the last almost 20 years. And in the last 4 years, I've been developing the school, the Movement Lab School, that has been the home for, quite a bunch of people who've been starting to dance with us, people who reconnected to dance from all walks of life, different ages. And very often I would ask my students, why dance? Why do you dance? It's also something that we've shared very often in our promotional material for the school, some testimonials of our students about their connection to dance. And I think that there's been a certain common thread that I started to hear within the different expression of my students and many people, and I can also share it with myself, that was up until recently kind of the main thing I promoted as dance. And I think that in the last few weeks, some kind of more profound understanding started to become more clear for me about this question of why to dance. So I think that maybe it's I will share some of the things that I've been hearing very often, and then we can kind of explore it together. So I think that for many people who have been in the Movement Lab and have studied with me, a lot of the reasons were anchored around things that you can categorize under self-development. People wanted to dance because it helped them to connect to themselves. It helped them to kind of get familiar with their emotions, with their body, help them to understand themselves in social situations, help them to overcome certain physical limitations, certain maybe rehab certain injuries, everything that has to do with kind of, let's say, self-improvement. And I think that that's a big part of what dance does. But I don't think that that's the reason, the deep reason of why humans engage in dancing. And first, I think that all these reasons are anchored in a very, let's say, self-centered perspective, or they are dealing with the individual. So it's benefits that we can get by engaging in dance. Some of them are, I would say, like very contemporary needs, like, okay, I want to dance in order to understand better boundaries between me and other people. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we've outsourced boundary management to physical spaces and other, let's say, external parameters. So it's not something that we are practicing on our everyday. So suddenly it becomes something I can experience through dance. And I think that generally speaking, this perspective that dance has something to do with helping me as an individual is a very, let's say, recent perspective, because focusing so much on the individual is a new thing. And again, if I also take it kind of more personal point of view, my own journey to dance was really about self-discovery, about kind of learning who I am, connecting to my passion, learning how to express myself in the world. So it was, again, very much anchored in me developing myself and kind of becoming a more whole human being. But I think that that's just part of the story. And I often like to look at things and apply certain, let's say, evolutionary lenses in order to ask, okay, more fundamentally, why did we start dancing? And I think that if you think about it, like from that perspective, dance doesn't make so much sense initially, because if dance has just something to do about like self-improvement in a very contemporary sense, so then why would our ancestors would engage in an activity that is kind of burning calories, precious calories, and again, try to imagine living within a society, not even a society, within a community, within a tribe, that calories are extremely precious, and in order to eat, you have to hunt. So spending energy is not something you do easily, because you're living in a natural environment where life is not taken for granted. So spending your calories, burning your calories just to do, so to speak, nothing, seems quite mad, quite illogical. And I think that that's let's say that since we have such a utilitarian perspective on time nowadays, and there's always a certain need to understand what are you getting by doing something. So then nowadays, very often people say like, hey, dance has no purpose. Or I remember when I studied dance, many people asked me, yeah, but what are you going to do with studying dance? No, because again, dance doesn't have like it doesn't solve a very concrete problem. It's not like okay, I'm learning how to be a dentist like my wife. Now I can solve people's health in their teeth. It's not so clear. But I think that dance has a very, very clear purpose, but it has nothing to do with the individual per se. I think that dance is a social technology. Dance, we develop dance, we encounter dance as a mean to create cohesion and to strengthen us as groups. So not to strengthen the individual per se. It's not about me getting more fit or more flexible to be able to perform different tasks, or me getting better with understanding how I can communicate. All of these are great features that are kind of byproducts, but it's not what dance is about. I think the essence of dance is really about strengthening groups of people to get more tightly together. Now, there's a bunch of research being done on that, and like to mention few. So there is evidence for the fact that when we engage in activities that promote like synchronized movement and dancing with, let's say, on a certain rhythm is definitely one of them, that this can increase endorphin release, which means that it encourages the feeling of social closeness, of cooperation. Now, that's kind of one feature. Another feature is like how touch and shared experience, especially around physical activities, can release oxytocin that, again, create affection between people. So I think dance has something to do with binding people together. And that's one big thing about dance. And that's why we can see it being used in different rituals, especially in indigenous and, let's say, more ancient communities. So dance brings people together. It connects people together. And I think that the second purpose for dance is to connect us with that which is transcendent, to connect us to something that is beyond our materialistic existence, to connect us to a certain spirit. Now, I would say that maybe there are some evidence also, let's say, within the realm of science of how dance can alter our state of consciousness. But I think, again, it goes beyond that. It's not just about the individual experience of being in an altered state of consciousness. It's about accessing something together. Now, there is a certain alchemy in this combination of being together with other people, experiencing a certain connection, and through that accessing different state of mind that can bring us to, maybe you can say it can bring you closer to God. Maybe you can say it brings me closer to nature, or I can connect to the oneness. Doesn't matter what is the discourse you're coming from. But again, it kind of funnels us into a certain experience. And I think that's something that is very different, fundamentally different than all this individualistic pursuit of why we are dancing. And, we can comment a lot on like the commodification of dance and how dance is becoming something that we are consuming. And I made a whole episode about dance and the consumer culture. You can go back into that and hear my thoughts about that. I'm not going to dive fully into that, but I'll just mention a bit that yes, even within my school, we are selling programs. We are educating people in programs. So people pay money in order to dance. So I'm also part of that ecosystem, obviously. But I think that like there is a possibility to experience that aspect of dance even within that kind of a social setup. Now, I'm not aiming with my movement lab to change the social fabric and to completely break down from this, let's say, economical system that we are finding ourselves in. But I am interested to understand what can I do within that kind of a system. And I think that there is a lot to be done. And despite the fact that many of us who are practicing dance are living in cities, we are not living in tribal communities anymore, we do have the possibility to create spaces in which dance can be seen as such. And but it has to have something with the perspective that we bring into the space. And now I want to dive a little bit more into what I've mentioned, this example of the old tribe who are engaging in dance and burning precious calories. No? So again, I think that there is something fundamental to understand that is happening in that situation. Imagine again that like one of the, let's kind of go even backwards. So I think that the most important thing that we can name or that we can understand about life is that that life requires energy. That's a fundamental law that everything that is alive, whether it's a plant or something that is, or an animal, in order to maintain life, we require energy. And the most basic currency of energy is calories. No, for living, for animals, like we need to consume something or get some access to calories in order to maintain energy. Now, humans, we have perfected the art of harnessing energy on the planet. We started to burn wood and discover fire, all the up to us understanding how to generate atomic energy. So we have energy, we have abundance of energy. So to some extent, we don't really remember what it feels to when energy is something that is scarce. And of course, I'm talking about, I'm living in the developed world. I have access to electricity, and I guess that all of you are listening are kind of finding yourself in similar situation. I'm not saying that it's the case all over the world, but nonetheless, that's my experience for the moment. But I think that this abundance of energy really makes us forget what it means to really give in your most vital life energy, which is to burn calories. Again, calories is the most fundamental unit that we can generate energy from. No, all the rest of the things that we have perfected is just in order to help us get into the place that we can have more calories. No. Now, again, most of us, and I guess you're in the same situation, when we are hungry, we have access to food. So we don't have this feeling of, I should be careful with how I exert my energy now. But if the way you generate calories is by going out and picking up stuff or engaging with some hunting activity, then before you can get energy, you have to spend energy. So there is a certain basic sacrifice that you're doing. You're saying, okay, in order for me to enjoy more calories, first, I have to sacrifice calories. And in that sense, dance is not different. We are starting to play music. Some of us are engaging in playing music. Some of us are engaging in connecting to the music and moving our bodies. And we are all burning calories. So we are all engaging in an activity that requires sacrifice, individual sacrifice. And again, from the perspective that I'm talking, dance is not about me. It's not about the individual benefits that I'm getting. So the fundamental relation that the individual has with dance is a relationship of sacrifice. It's not a relationship of getting something, of I'm exerting some benefit for myself. That's not the fundamental relationship with dance. The fundamental relationship with dance is I'm here in the space, I'm sacrificing my calories for something that is not me, something that is bigger than myself. Now, I've shared part of this perspective in a workshop in Salzburg a few months ago, and I remember that some of the participants had really like a strong aversion from the word sacrifice. For some reason, the association was very negative, as if like sacrifice is something that I'm kind of losing myself. I'm sacrificing myself for something that maybe I didn't choose, or it can be associated with a lot of negativities. But my connection to this word is something that I find on a very positive note, which means that I enter a situation with sincere optimism. So I'm sacrificing because I believe, because I have hope, because I'm fundamentally seeing the potential positivity. I don't look at it from a negative place of, oh my God, like I've been used for something. And I think this is kind of really the core point that I want to bring into this specific conversation that we are having. So how can we view dance from a lens of sacrifice? And in that regard, when I look at everything that I do in the movement lab, at the end there is a certain funnel, and I can categorize it into two main spaces, main settings. One funnel is that we are encouraging people to go into the performance practice, a place in which they would share their dance with audience. And the other spaces is jams, which are spaces in which people kind of come together to dance together. And in both of these situations, I see this quality as the crucial ingredients that without it, dance, the spirit of dance cannot be present in the room. So when we are engaging in performance practice, and I'm guiding in the Movement Lab this year for the third year, the ensemble program, which next year will be guided by another person. One thing that I told my students this year is that there is a certain, let's say, leap of faith that you have to do in order to be a performer. Like you have to kind of have a certain trust and then sacrifice some of your energy, something that you are willing to give in, not knowing what you're going to get back from the process. And that has to do with the fact that when we are engaging in an artistic process, when we are going to create something, we don't really know what we're going to do. So there is a certain element of me saying, hey, I'm willing to give in my energy, my focus, my kindness, my curiosity, whatever I'm willing to give, I'm giving it to the space. And in hope that something bigger will happen here. And what is this something bigger? That I will be part of a creation that is bigger than me, that could be shared with people in a performance evening, which is a great potential for transformation, like a ceremony. It cannot happen when you think of what do I want to get from it. And I think that when I studied dance, again, when I started dancing in Austria, I think I was full on the narrative and then the story that I am going into my individualistic journey of getting to know myself and expressing myself and fulfilling myself. That was the narrative that most of us in the dance school were really about. And then like when a choreographer would come, we would always like ask like, okay, what do I like the material? Is it something that I enjoy? Do I feel connected to the process? Am I proud of representing it? There was all this kind of perspective that was really anchored in like, what am I getting out of it? And I'm not saying that everybody was like that. I will speak mostly for my own experiences, but that was mainly my perspective. For that reason, I was a horrible dancer to work with, to be honest. I think that when I created my own performances, then without even naming it, it was kind of an obvious thing that, okay, if I'm not fully giving myself now into that situation, nothing brilliant will happen. So I had to sacrifice my energy in order to create something. I was in that process, but without really acknowledging it. But I was always very horrible to work as a dancer because I wasn't very connected to the spirit of sacrifice. I was always coming with a certain desire to take something, to gain something. And I would say that a similar thing is happening when we go to a jam. And when I say jam, I would say like that what I'm referring to is the movement lab jam, which is kind of, let's say, aligned partially with the spirit of contact improvisation jams. There are differences in how we understand jamming within the movement lab, but that's the closest I can say. It is a contact improvisation jam for many people who are coming. For me, I do see it a little bit like that it's not, that there is certain differences, but let's say it is a space where you can come, you can dance your solo, you can interact with others, you can watch. Sometimes there's live music, sometimes there is silence, and you are part of a space. And that's what is happening in most contact jams around the world as well. So also in a jam, and I would say like that, again, many people come to the jam because, again, they get something from it. It's like, I get to enjoy my body, I get to meet people I like, it's something that keeps me healthy, whatever. Like there's a lot of benefits that people do. And I think that many people come also because of those reasons, especially newcomers. You know, you don't know, you come, you're kind of curious, what will happen, what kind of an experience would I have there? So there's, again, this kind of need to harvest and to take something individually. But good jams work when there is enough, let's say, that when the quality of sacrifice is present enough, when we come there to really give something to the space. And again, I think it's something that maybe for some people it's very intuitive. For me, it took many years to understand it on an embodied level. What does it mean to sacrifice something for the space? And I think that this is like the most important ingredient that can really shift our experience from something that is about self-serving ourselves and taking to something that can bind us into a structure that is larger than ourselves. Now, why would we want to sacrifice? That would be maybe a good question. Okay, Matan, I understand. Okay, I need to sacrifice, but why would I want to sacrifice? And that's a big question, because I think like we are in a time where individuality is being celebrated and protected. And there are also good reasons why we got to that place. And we also always need to make sure that we don't forget about the individual, okay? Because it's not good. Like, let's say, collective movements have often made horrible atrocities to individuals. So, and I'm talking, like, just look at the history of the 20th century. So, of course, it's very good to honor the individual and respect, universal human rights and all of that kind of things. It's very important. but I think that again, dance didn't emerge from that perspective. It's not that we started to dance after understanding universal human rights and thinking of what kind of a practice will be perfect for the individual. No, dance emerged in times that this perspective was really far from being present. When the notion of individuality couldn't even exist because you would never survive as an individual. Like, again, like, if there is something that we can say that is universal, is that human beings are social animals. There are no individual wanderers that are just existing by themselves. We are not like, I don't know, leopards that are like solo animals. We are social animals. So the idea of an individual is disconnected from survival, from like basic existence. And that's where dance emerged, because dance is very ancient. So why should we sacrifice? So I think that one of the ills of modernity, when we started to kind of honor or let's say understanding the individual as the smallest minority that needs to be protected, hence human rights, etc., hence our economical order that is really geared for like individual well-being. We have all industries about well-being for the individual. But I think, again, like one of the biggest pathologies that we see in our life, in how we structure our society is disconnection, is loneliness, is the fact that we are not feeling inherently connected anymore. That's why we have all sort of fake ways to be connected, to be part of some online community that has a certain interest in, I don't know, mushrooms or whatever. You know, we find so many ways to feel, okay, I'm part of this and I'm part of that. And like we are fragmenting and outsourcing our ability to feel connected to others through weird means. And that's that's not healthy. And I think that part of the purpose of dance is to really strengthen that which is opposite of loneliness, that which is opposite of feeling of separateness and feeling that you don't belong, and all of these feelings that are very common nowadays. So I think that's kind of that's maybe would be a framework to think of, okay, why should I sacrifice? Now, I'm aware that I'm suggesting now, okay, you should sacrifice because you're going to get something on an individual level. So that's maybe kind of a bit of a catch or like a paradox in what I'm saying. And I'm aware that it's very, very hard to really disconnect from this individual perspective, because again, most of us find ourselves in situations where we don't have dependency on other people, on our immediate survival. No, like, okay, you might live in a village, you might even live in a certain community, but still, like, you have your own money, you have your own bank account. Like, how many of us are living in a situation that if you, my neighbor, don't survive, I don't survive? It is like this fundamentally, you know, we are connected, we are dependent on, I don't know, many farmers who are working somewhere to produce food, and I don't know, many workers who are building our houses, and people who maintain our grid, and like, we are connected and we are dependent. But it's not that immediate. So it's very hard to have this feeling. So it's very hard to say, okay, I'm going to sacrifice to strengthen my community that doesn't exist. So there is a trap here that is very challenging to overcome. But I think that maybe what dance can do nowadays is at least gives us a very strong embodied memory. Because I really believe that, you know, that it's the spirit of dance is in our cells, you know, like the, you know, this connection to beat, the feeling of like, okay, I'm moving with rhythm, I'm feeling into music. You know, that's kind of very fundamental. You know, I don't know any person that if you play their favorite song, their body doesn't start to react. You know, you know this feeling. You know what I'm talking about when you hear something a piece of music that you really like, and you feel like your body just naturally starts to synchronize with that you hear. That's the most fundamental interpretation of dance, no? So I think it's like dance can give us that memory, and maybe having that memory awareness to that which we need to strengthen in our life, to that which is missing, because we can have a certain reference to what is the potential of that. And I think it's different than just understanding it cognitively and saying like, yes, true, I am missing some connection, and I can understand that dance can do that. And you know, and there are other means to connect with other people. I'm not saying that dance is the only way. You know, if we are talking about connecting with one individual, I think that most people can associate, I know, sexuality and intimate touch as a really deep way to connect with one individual. But that's different. Or maybe you're practicing less, let's say, socially conventional practices with sexuality, and you're exploring sexuality with groups of people. Maybe I don't have those experiences, so for me, that's not something I can share from experience. My sexuality is reserved for one particular individual, which is my wife. So, but I would say like that whether our ancestor did practice sexuality as a mean for social cohesion or not, that's maybe it's up for interpretation. Maybe there are different evidences in different tribes, but dance was there. That's not a question. And again, I think, as I said, there are other activities that we can do to get like a certain bond. You know, like I come from sport. Sport was the first physical activities I was connected. I was playing basketball for many years. And also through basketball, you can get like a real sense of camaraderie. But I think the sport, let's say the spirit of sport, which I would also associate with martial art, is kind of it's a different spirit. It connects us to the warrior spirit, the spirit of competition, of competitiveness, of like challenging one another. It's a different thing. We can also get connected, but dance does something else. It pulls us into the transcendent, into something that is again beyond our need for calories. No, like if you think about like competition, and I say like the spirit of sports or whatever we want to call it, you know, like we are kind of sharpening our senses. We are challenging our capacity, and you can see how that clearly can translate into like, you know, hunting better together. You even see it in the animal kingdom, no? Like kind of young lion calves play fighting with one another. They're kind of engaging in that kind of competitive, playful spirit because they know that, okay, if we do that enough, we're going to push one another to excel in our hunting pursuit. So you can see how that spirit has already like some kind of a aim that it goes towards, but dance doesn't go to any aim. Its aim is to be experienced. And I think that when we kind of get from that point of sacrifice and we are diving into the experience of dance with others, and when something starts to happen to us on the level of our consciousness, then we can access an experience that maybe can remind us, like, where are we coming from? What is, let's say, we are flirting with like the sources of life. And that's something I can share from an experience, you know, like kind of feeling into that which is consciousness, and how on that level I belong to somewhere. I'm coming from somewhere. Consciousness is not something that is non-existing. It has a certain existence, and I can know it through my experience. And I feel like the dance really moves us in that direction. That's something that I've been trying to codify and explore more in what I call the metaphysical body practice, which gave birth to several performances and workshops of how dance can be used as a tool to access different state of consciousness, altered state of consciousness. And again, and I think that these things are kind of in the root of dancing. So yes, I think it's like it can definitely be developed further, this conversation. I just wanted to offer a short introduction to it, and I'll see how it lands with you, my audience. So feel free to comment and respond. And if there are things that you think that you want to hear further, or if you think that you would be able to be a entertaining and interesting conversational partner, maybe you can suggest yourself or any other person that you think that might be relevant and valuable to share this platform with me in order to develop this discourse further. I would be very happy to hear from you. And that's it for today. So I'm looking forward to see you in the next episode. And as I said, for those who are curious to get into this perspective, but on an embodied direct experience, we are offering our free information evening that will happen on the 7th of May at 8 p.m. Austria time. It's going to happen via Zoom. So you're welcome to go to our website, movementlab.eu/info-evening, where you can sign up and get all the information. And that's it. Thank you for your attention, and I see you on the next episode.
If you want to see more precious and insightful moments, make sure to check our short clips playlist. To see longer interviews, check out the full episode playlist just below it. And to be notified for all future videos, click the subscribe button and don't forget to hit the notification bell. See you on the next episode.